Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time we've got the pleasure of watching Knagar playing in his IS-3A. This is the brand new Tier 8 Soviet premium heavy tank that is the talk of the European server, at least, as it is available for 24 hours only, starting today. But North America has this tank. All these Americans are saying, oh, this is old news. God, Europe, get on our level, right? Wargaming North America have been doing a fantastic job of getting their content out at the same time or earlier than Europe recently, so hats off to them for that. But that means the Europeans have got lots of good gameplay to look forward to checking out from the last week, so we can get a more holistic idea of what the tank is all about. And trust me, the replay that Knagar is going to have here, well, it's one of the biggest so far that I've been able to find of the IS-3A, so thank you so much for submitting this to me. Now, if you haven't seen my full review last week, I'm just going to very quickly run down what this tank is all about. Well, for all intents and purposes, it is an IS-3 that sacrifices mobility to be able to fit the premium model and have a gun that works in a slightly different way. Overall, this tank is worse than the IS-3. It's much, much slower. Much slower. This tank has a barely over 10 specific power ratio. 10.67 to be exact. And that is not fantastic. That is in the regions of very slow heavies, such as the Lerva, even the T-34. It isn't the nimble heavy tank that is one of the key strengths of the regular IS-3. However, unlike a lot of premium tanks in the game, it gets a very competitive gun. I guess a lot like a Lerva and a T-34 when you think about it. But the rate of fire is tremendous. The rate of fire is actually better than a regular IS-3, would you believe? The DPM is roughly, I think, about 15% higher, which does allow you to cut through your opponents faster than the regular IS-3 can. But to be able to gain this, you do lose quite a bit of gun handling. This tank is very inaccurate with 0.46 dispersion at 100 meters, but you wouldn't know it as Starling guides that one right into the cupola of the Tier 7 British tank destroyer, the 87. Now, the penetration on this tank is quite good. It's actually 221, which is rather nice compared to, for example, an IS-6, compared to a KV-5, compared to a lot of Soviet heavy tanks, premium ones at least, which generally their main weakness is their penetration is poor, at least for premium vehicles. And that generally is the meta. Most premium tanks have poor penetration compared to their standard vehicle counterparts. It's kind of like a balancing mechanic. But also, those vehicles generally get preferential matchmaking, so they can never meet Tier 10s. The IS-3A, on the other hand, can meet Tier 10s, and it doesn't have the poor penetration that you associate with preferential matchmaking tanks. So while I've been talking, gosh, Knagar's team has absolutely evaporated. They are down by 5 tanks right now, and they've been able to take the base. I guess that's because the enemy team has a huge amount more medium tanks compared to Knagar's team, including a platoon of T-34-100s. And if you're wondering, what the hell are those? Well, that is the brand new Tier 7 Czechoslovakian medium tank, which pretty much is a T-34 hull with a strengthened turret that enables it to use 100mm, a gun that's fairly competitive on tanks such as the T-54 first prototype or on the T-44. Those T-34-100s are very juicy targets though. Oh, nice, big, easy hull shot there. That tank, it's hard to believe, it has 30, I think is it 40? Ah, gosh, I think it's 40mm, maybe 45mm of hull armor. Fair enough, it's well angled, but when you take a Tier 5 hull that's quite weak at Tier 5 and step it up to Tier 7, then, well, things aren't going to go very well for that vehicle. Wow, that was nearly a min roll. Knagar, that was pretty unfortunate there. 296 damage done with that shot. I think 293 is a min roll for a 390 alpha damage, so not very lucky there. One thing that I should mention is that the IS-3A also gets APCR rounds as standard and heat rounds as premium. That means that they actually go towards the target at great speed. the shell velocity is 1,400 meters a second. So that means that you barely have to give any lead compared to, for example, the 1,000 meters a second that the standard shells on the regular IS-3 fly towards the target. So that gives your team, well, the enemy, a lot more chance to be able to change the direction that they're traveling, and it makes giving lead at longer distances harder because you have to give more lead. So Knagar shuts down the Cromwell that was a bit too ambitious there as he comes around the corner, and this is just not fair, really. Both of these tanks are Tier 8 premium vehicles. Both don't have preferential matchmaking. But the IS-3A can actually bounce the M4A1 Revolorize, and the M4A1 Revolorize has no chance to bounce the IS-3A. And do you know what's bizarre as well? The IS-3A actually has a better rate of fire than that vehicle. Generally, the strength of a medium tank is that it has a superior rate of fire to a heavy. Not in this case, not in this case at all. I believe the M4A1 has roughly about a 4.6 rounds a minute rate of fire, whereas this vehicle is 5.13. It's a big step up in DPM compared to that tank, even though the alpha damage is exactly the same. So now it's Knagar and a Carnarvon versus a rather meaty GW Tiger Pig on the enemy team. This platoon of T-34-100s who are still left over, and an SP-1C who seems to be sitting in base. Maybe he's AFK. What a shame at the end of this game. The T-34-100 shows that lovely meaty gun that it gets on that Tier 7 medium tank and shuts down the Carnarvon behind. But Knagar picks up his first kill on this platoon. He bounces a heat round from the T-34-100 on his left and focuses attention to the right. Thank goodness the artillery misses him. That would have been absolutely disastrous if that round had ended. Look at the crater that left to the left-hand side of his vehicle. So Knagar really needs to focus down the low health one first. He realizes that and makes a beeline straight towards him. Terrible play there by the T-34-100. Fair enough, he probably didn't want to allow Knagar to isolate his friend that was further towards the west, but getting caught out by an IS-3A. This isn't the most mobile tank, and when you're in a medium, you really need to be able to control the engagement against your heavies. However, the T-34-100 might have a shot into the back of Knagar here. Not quite, though. He's on 5 kills, and there are 3 remaining tanks. He is contesting a Kolobanov's medal. Ah, the .46 accuracy of the IS-3A not doing him well there. So he's unable to quickly snipe into the turret of the T-34-100. So one thing that the IS-3A certainly is worse for than the regular IS-3 is dispersion, both when moving, when turning the hull, when turning the turret, when after firing. The bloom on this gun is tremendous. And if we were to go into sniper mode here, hopefully, you'll be able to see that you have to aim for a hell of a long time to be able to get anywhere close to that .46 accuracy, which is also rather bad. So what that means is the IS-3A is best suited to close quarters combat, where it can make use of its 110 to 130 millimeters of very effective frontal hull armor. I guess one thing I should do is really highlight for anyone who is going to have to fight these tanks in the next few days, what are your chances of taking them out? Well, firstly, number 1 tip, don't shoot here or here. These tracks on the front of the tank actually count as 20 millimeters of extra armor. They're 130 millimeters thick. What you want to do is shoot outside these at this area here, which is 110. And then what you want to do is basically shoot at the flattest surface of the IS-3. If he angles like this, shoot here, and that's pretty much going to be a pen for any tank with about 180 to 200 millimeters of pen. If he angles on the other side, well, it's fairly straightforward. If he goes flush on, then you're probably best to shoot a surface like up here, right on the cheeks. That's quite a nice area to hit. Or if you're low down, a low profile tank, shooting up at the lower plate is a good idea. But never shoot down at an IS-3's lower plate, especially in close quarters. Otherwise you're going to have a very tricky time. When you've got the side armor of this tank, never ever shoot the upper part. That's very thick and spaced. You want to shoot between the tracks in areas like here and here, and just hit anywhere on the back of the vehicle. The enemy T-34-100 enters the cap circle. Knagar goes forwards, catches him. Boom! Right in there. Also setting him on fire. Unable to finish him off, though. Great result. T-34-100 is trying to make his way out, but the excellent rate of fire on the IS-3A allows him to finish him off. And a regular IS-3 wouldn't have been able to reload fast enough to take him down. Although, and if you were in a regular IS-3, you might have gone forwards and been able to harass him there. What a great result. One thing that's very interesting is the Knagar in the chat says, how were you not reloading? I guess he thinks that the IS-3A has an autoloader. And that's one of the common misconceptions of this vehicle and why it is being called the IS-3A and not the IS-3 Auto. I believe that's been fixed in the game now, right? Previously it was IS-3 Auto, I believe. Now it is IS-3A in the game. So at least that's fixed. This tank doesn't have an autoloader. It fires 5.13 rounds a minute, as I said earlier. And so that means that if you're in a tier 9 tank, such as maybe the, Type 61, which fires 6 rounds a minute, you can easily put 2 shots into this vehicle and pull back. And you definitely need to do that. If you're in a tier 8 tank, such as the Pershing, you can easily put 2 shots into this vehicle, hopefully doing 480 damage to him, and maybe only receiving 390 in return. While this tank does have a significantly better rate of fire than the IS-3, it doesn't change how you should try and engage these vehicles. It's all about trading with them effectively. For example, if you're in a Tiger II, you have to shoot this thing twice for every time it hits you. Otherwise, you are going to be way, way, way behind. My final tip about this tank is that this area on top of the vehicle, this kind of like welded plate here, is very poorly armored. And it's actually very easy to overmatch this tank, especially if you're a tall vehicle and you can aim on it here. I mean, you'd have to be silly, really, if you can see his hull to not shoot down on the hull armor from this angle. But if you can only see the turret, don't be afraid to shoot on top. Even with high explosive rounds, you're going to do a huge amount of damage to the vehicle and overmatch the very thin armor. Unfortunately for Knagar, I feel really bad for him in this situation. It looks like the SP-1C on the enemy team was AFK, which means that while this is going to be a Kolobanov's medal, at least on his record, it's not a real Kolobanov's medal. He was only 1 versus 4 here. But still, 1 versus 4 is pretty darn good, especially when it's a platoon, a rather skilled platoon, of brand new Tier 7 Czechoslovakian medium tanks. And at the end of the game, all that's needed is to shut down the GW Tiger Pig. Take it away, Knagar. This must have been a very satisfying moment. Great result. So this fairly straightforward round of World of Tanks is very representative of the IS-3. It's not flashy. It doesn't really do anything completely fancy. It's just absolutely brutal and gets the job done with sheer force. The IS-3A is a very solid tank, and why wouldn't it be? It's based on the IS-3, which is probably one of the strongest vehicles tier for tier in the game. And the fact that this tank comes so close to being as competitive as a standard vehicle really makes this an attractive prospect as possibly the strongest premium heavy tank in World of Tanks. And as we're going to see in the post-game stats, a contender, at least in a matchup like this, as one of the best credit earners. So what a result for Knagar here. This was his ace tanker, a Radley Walters for picking up that 8th kill, a high caliber for a huge amount of damage done, 5,400. And while on paper this was a Kolobanov's medal, when an SP-1C is AFK like that, this really was a 1 versus 4. And I think that's a real shame, because with the amount of health that you had left at the game, if that SP-1C wasn't AFK, you would have easily got this Kolobanov's medal, legitimately, I think. This was 1,848 base experience points, including the bonus for being a premium vehicle. Knagar gets 5,821 experience for his double, which is a huge amount of crew experience, but I guess it only goes on 3 crew, right? Because this vehicle doesn't use a loader. And this is really what you want to see, 151,000 credits received and 113,000 credits profit. What a result! Really, I wouldn't have expected anything less from having a tank this strong in a matchup this good in a player as capable as yourself, Knagar. And thank you so much for sending me this replay. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think that you demonstrated to the viewers the raw power of the IS-3A, and one of the reasons why I did this video was to highlight the weaknesses for you guys. You're going to see a huge amount of these vehicles in the game, and if you're on the North American server, you've already probably been seeing them. And so hopefully the fact that I highlighted all of those weaknesses was useful to any of you who have no interest in picking up one of these vehicles. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to see a more in-depth view at the IS-3A, then simply click through up here or use the more info icon in the top right hand corner of your screen to see my full review on the vehicle, as well as gameplay of how I handled myself in some tier 10 matchups. And let me know in the comments down below if you have met any of the IS-3As in the battle. How did they perform? Especially if you're on the North American server, and I expect there's been quite a few of them. And also in other news regarding T22 mission rigging, I was really glad to hear today that Wargaming Europe have taken the same stance as Wargaming Russia, as they announced that about 100 players who were found to be rigging to be able to get the T22 medium tank have been suspended for 2 weeks. The vehicle has been removed from their account, and as the missions cannot be repeated, they're never going to be able to get the tank. And that completely sucks for you guys, because just last week all the missions were made a lot easier. I think that's what they call karma, right guys? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.